everybody, and welcome in to a Saturday surprise. I have some fantastic people back again. You asked for them to come back, and here they are. Really dear, dear people to me, Sue and Kiwi. Thanks for coming in tonight, guys.
Thank you for having us. It's always fun.
Oh yeah,
Always fun.
sister, love you and love your show. Just upset that Steve Stockton couldn't be on here too.
We can arrange that. We can absolutely arrange that. We'd have a ball. Maybe next time you
Oh,
come on,
bro.
we'll get on. Oh,
I
here's
would
my bud.
fangirl too hard, bro.
Maybe wear his hat. But
Yeah.
yeah, he just had a picture today. He posted on his. He got to meet David Paulides. I can't wait to hear that story. You know, he's the one that does the missing 411, all the disappearances and stuff. That's
Wow,
that in national parks and things. And Steve goes in and digs and gets the other stories that they don't quite accept into their cluster. So there's even more. Trust me, there's more. So that's a trip. But yeah, Steve would love it. He'll probably pop in tonight. So again, thanks so much for coming in. I want to give people a little bit of background. I have made some friends over the years that I have learned have come into my life at my time in my journey. And if you know me on this show, we always talk about your journey. Your journey is yours. Everybody's scenery is going to be different. Even if you're walking with somebody, you notice that if you remember back in the days when we were kids, we used to just walk everywhere, and everybody sees something different. Something different's going to catch each individual's eye. And I often say, your journey is yours. It doesn't mean you don't get to walk with people every once in a while. Sometimes those people come in to show you what they see and you see something different. And then sometimes you see things that don't quite make sense till later on in your journey when everything snaps together and clicks. But I've learned that I meet people, they come into my life for a reason. And I find out, okay, that's my person, that my go-to for this. So I can ask a question and have it explained to me. And, shamans and mediums and psychics and researchers and people that understand in their depths, in their mind and how they see things. And it's always great to have people like that on. And you guys have been my go-to for so many things. And boy, if I want to know about origins or things in the Bible or all different things, I'm like, okay, explain this to me, and we talk about it and we learn. And that's what I think we're all here to do, is to learn from each other, lift each other up, get each other through things. And paranormal and the supernatural, they bring so much that we just push aside. And I believe, a message, not only for the person it happened to, but for you and probably people in the chat and people who will listen a year from now, 2 years from now. That's how the universe works. That's how energy works. That's how the spirit guides work and things like that. So you guys wanted to talk about some things tonight, and I thought it was just so neat. And we're talking a little bit about origins and a little bit about learning from stories and parables and Native American teachings, and very similar in the Bible, is it not, Kiwi? The way Jesus spoke.
Absolutely. So ancient Hebrew was all about parables. You look at pre-Canaanite language, the pre-Canaanite language, which is similar to Hebrew, and it's based on pictograms.
It's all about parables. You look at
Sorry about that.
you look
Sorry.
You look at the ancient pre-Canaanite Hebrew style lettering, and their stories, their images, and their parables. And the ancient Jewish and Hebrews and even rabbis know that the way you pass on knowledge is through a parable because it's uncorruptible.
I love that. I love that.
And
that is just, can you expand on that thought for just a second? It's uncorruptible because it's in a parable. How?
Oh, I wasn't ready
Yeah.
for that one. So,
I get
think
it, but
because it's a story of truths. It's a story of provable facts and truths that every single person as a human being that hears the story has the ability to relate to.
Yeah, when you see and that's what it's called. It's called Proto-Sinaitic alphabet. It was the original characters that Moses actually supposedly brought down from Mount Sinai, which is why it's called Proto-Sinaitic. But when you see this taking place in the earliest writings of the Bible, it tells a magnificent story, something more than Hebrew and Greek and just all the other translations can give to you. The very first thing in the Bible you read in Hebrew is a word called Bereshit, which is when you see it in Proto-Sinaitic, it tells the story of the coming of Jesus in one word, technically.
So it also gives you the beginning. It gives you Genesis at the start, the coming of Jesus in the middle, and it gives you Revelations at the end.
Yeah.
All from one word in
Proto-Sinaitic.
It's incredible.
Wow.
Yeah, it's fascinating because, I mean, when you see how the Hebrew people, they don't necessarily believe that Jesus Christ came, but their scripture foretells it, in the first phrase. It's amazing what you can find when you really dig deep into the translations.
Incredible. And isn't it funny how you get an echo too? Is that me?
We're good, but I can turn you down a little bit. Hang on a second.
All right, sweetie. It's amazing how in so many different groups, the core is the same. And I've said that so many times. If you have a group that gets together to, for past your survival stuff, to gather, to survive, another day, to live on, to procreate, to raise your children, all of that. But then you get your beliefs, your religion, your spiritual guidance, all that. There's so many core things that are the same. It's, you take care of yourself, take care of others, love, kindness, take care of nature, it'll take care of you. And no matter where you go, a lot of different tribal villages that still exist today are the same. And it blows my mind that it's the Bible where I love the way Jesus spoke in parable. There's so many layers. The words written in red.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, this is why I wanted to bring up the story of the grandfather and the two wolves, and explaining to a child about understanding basically your soul and the way it interacts with spirits.
Yes. Very interesting take he has on this one.
I think this is very cool. Because let me tell you a little bit of background on storyteller. Now, again, I'm Cherokee and Lenape. Anytime that you speak on Native American lore or customs or things like that, you have to be, because pretty soon you'll have Sioux, well, we didn't do that. You'll have Navajo, well, we did this, but it was like that. When I speak generally that basically encompasses so many different tribal beliefs of Native American, and then it goes past that because, like I just said, in many tribes around the world, same type of thing. So don't jump on me if you're Sioux and your grandmother didn't teach you this, because it's pretty universal. It's pretty universal. But storyteller in the village was a very high respected person, because of course this is how they kept their history going. They also taught good from bad, morals, so many things within the story, just like Jesus did in the Bible. Multi-layered, right? So the storyteller would be passed down to the next one, and it wouldn't necessarily go to the family member or a son like other things do, like a father to son or a mother to daughter or whatever. It would go to the best one, because the skill, absolutely, the one who was gifted, the one who was picked with that. Just like now everybody's got skills or gifts. You might be psychic, you might be empath, you might be 10,000 things, you might be a machinist. And they were very good at picking who was good for this. So so many of the stories I remember telling my sons, and then you see it on when they were little. Pocahontas was made. Well, in Pocahontas, there are snippets of truth, and then there's the other stuff.
Like everything with Hollywood, there's snippets of
Yeah,
truth and
yeah.
narrative.
Right.
Yeah.
But at one point in time, and I was just reminded of this tonight, the grandmother willow dipped one of the leaves into the river and it made ripples. And she taught about how we do things and we don't see the ripples it leaves. We don't see how many things it touches. You're responsible for that act. And then there's a reaction. Okay. And you never quite know how far it goes. You'll never see it, but you're still affecting it. That act, whatever it was, affects others. And I've had the dead come back and tell us that. Like, you didn't
Oh, wow.
realize, or this person didn't realize that when they did this, it caused this. And that caused this.
Yeah.
And that's just another way of saying we're all connected. Right?
That's true.
So
That's
if
very
you want me
true.
to tell my version of the wolf story, the one that I usually hear when we go to powwows and the storytellers tell us, and this was in a Cherokee Creek and Seminole camp. So it was
nice.
all of us gathered, and listening. And basically what it starts out is the elder grandfather notices that a young boy was really troubled. He was having a lot of battle within his own self. He was never quite fitting in and he couldn't find his place. So he observed him for a couple of days, and that's what most elders do. They observe. And that's, they learn that way. And he finally takes him to the lake and he sits him down and he says, and he teaches him that. The first thing he does, he said, touch the water. You see this. You see it move away. Everything that you're going to do in life is going to have a reaction. So right now, you being sad, making me sad. You being troubled is making me troubled. Okay. You seem concerned, and I think you're searching for yourself. There's a battle. And he said it just like that. And he says, so what is happening with you? And he says, Grandfather, I've been having dreams. And he said, what are the dreams like? He said, tell me one. And he said, one dream, I met a white wolf. And the wolf was very kind. And the wolf, I was scared at first, but the wolf came up and he was kind to me. And he said, were you kind to him first? And he said, no, I did nothing. He just came to me as if he knew me. And I felt I knew him. And the next night, he came back, but he was further away. And he said, Grandfather, what does that mean? And he said, what do you think it means? He said, I don't know. But I didn't like it when he was further away. I said, have you seen him since? He said, yes. But for 3 nights, I met a black wolf. And this wolf didn't like me. But I felt I knew him too. And he knew me. But he scared me. And he made me worried. And he made me wonder what was next. And I didn't want to have a dream again. So I wandered until I could not stay awake any longer. And I had another dream. And he said, tell me of this dream, what happened? And he said, it scared me so. He said, you must tell it. And he tells that the white wolf and the black wolf got into a fight. And it scared him so much. And the boy was just shaking when he told the story. And the grandfather was very stoic. And he looked out over the water, still rippling from the beginning of the conversation. And he said, what scares you the most? He said, Grandfather, I don't know. But I don't know which one will win. He said, do you know, Grandfather? And he said, yes, the one you feed.
Boom. That's
Thank
a
you.
powerful story.
Yep. And then he sat there and he just thought about it. He got very quiet and he said, "Do you see the ripples?" He said, "They're still going. So choose wisely, because whatever you do will ripple out and go on forever."
Beautifully said.
There it is.
So I think that is one of the most important stories of your learning your place in the universe that I've ever heard. And I say that because from everything I've read in detail and studied and looked at, and Genesis and the Bible and science and everything, looking for what is this place we live in. I mean, there's physical things we can see, we can touch, we can hear. Some of us can feel things. We know there's things that are beyond our sight. And we know that there's things up in the sky that we can't tell what they are, but we know they're there, and we're told they're one thing, but we've also seen proof that they're not. So when I was trying to figure out the purpose of why I'm here, why would I be here? I started with the assumption that I'm here because someone put me here. Someone created this environment and made it and wanted it. So I feel that there is an all-powerful creator that is behind everything physical. And to justify this logic, I start with the thought train of, if you look at a basic element like lime or something like that, that feeds a plant that has cells that grows into another plant and flowers and becomes food for a smaller animal to eat. And then that's that plant's job. That was that nutrient's job. That was that plant's job. It's transformed. It becomes from a nutrient to a plant. From a plant, it becomes an animal. That animal has other baby animals. And that other animal also feeds other animals that feed on it. So where do humans fit in? And I figure humans, they say, are maybe the animals that might be the only animals with souls or with consciousness. And if I was to classify humans on the food chain, I would say that we are food for another creature, another entity. And when it comes to which wolf do you feed, I believe our souls are food for the two wolves. Do we feed the good wolf or the bad wolf? And I think we literally feed our energy to one of the two wolves, Satan or Lucifer, if you want to look at it in the Bible, and God. Love and light versus dark and evil. And I think that's actually what happens to the energies of our souls when we leave our body. We might well go into the main energy field that holds this whole matrix of physical reality together. And the one that wins is the one you feed.
Well said.
Well said. And that's just it. And right now, I believe we're in this spiritual warfare. It's always been spiritual warfare, but it's ramping up. It's ramping up. It's ramping up because I think the black wolf has been getting fed quite a bit.
Absolutely.
And it's very hungry and it'll never be full.
Never
That's
before.
the thing.
Yeah, and it's been there since the beginning.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
you can see that throughout history. And that's the thing. It's easy to feed that black wolf. It's easy to do things that you shouldn't be doing. It's almost human nature to do things like that. However, feeding the white wolf just so happens to be the hardest yet most rewarding of the feedings.
Yes. Yes, and it also goes with arrows. Do you remember arrows, Kiwi?
I do. But just before we go into arrows, I also want to talk about that movie, 21 Grams, where they weighed the soul.
Yes.
Oh, wow. Yes, please do.
So just back onto which wolf do you feed? It's not just a metaphor. It's not just a parable. I think it's an actual event. Which wolf do you feed your soul to? Which way in this universe? Which path does your energy take? Does it add to a collection of positive energy or negative energy? And when you hear about the elites of this world, and you hear things like we're food to them.
Yeah.
the elites of this world aren't humans, in my opinion. They're not human beings. This world is run by princes and powers and principalities that don't exist here on the earth. That's from my understanding in the Bible, anyway. And we're literally being grown, like the Matrix movie, as a food, as an energy source for the next level of being that's in the universe.
Are you speaking of Lush as well as?
Oh, yeah,
That's part of it. It's part of it. Yeah.
It definitely is. Shady used to talk about Lush all the time, and it's one of those things that we haven't gotten fully into, but it directly connects with what he's talking about here. You know, though.
So yeah, I haven't dug down those parts. This was sort of like just a high level concept of what is the nature of our reality. What is this about?
I'll go get some sauce.
And Sue knows a lot more about that side of stuff.
But it is energy. I know that, not if you don't want to go too deep into the Lush, and, I'm still learning about that myself. But the basic thing is fear, fright, all of that, your energy. Even when you're talking about ghosts and, human ghosts, okay, or entities that come back that were never human, same thing. They feed on your fear, and that's how they get energy to manifest and move things and do stuff like that. So this is it, but on a higher scale.
On a higher scale. And so the other things that need to be brought into consideration is that from what we can gather from the Bible and stories and things like that, is time is only a relative thing for humans while our soul is in this learning ground. So outside of Earth, outside of this existence, once we leave the mortal coil, time, from what we read in the Bible, isn't a thing anymore. So time's a really interesting thing, because without time, you won't experience things. So you won't be able to grow. Your soul won't be able to grow. You won't be able to say to yourself, "Oh, remember that time when this really hurt, or when this was really awesome." It's always linked to a point in time, and without the scale of time, you can't have experience, and without experience, you can't have wisdom. Without wisdom, you aren't going to be creating soul food.
Well said. I like
Wow. Say that one more time, because that was awesome.
Just briefly to sum up why time is so important to human beings and to your soul. So if you weren't bound by the laws of time as a human, as a soul, you wouldn't stop and have a moment. You wouldn't create a memory because you couldn't link it into a moment in time if time didn't exist. If time was just forever and a totally different plane of existence, you'd be stuck with what you are. But because we're human, we get locked into a timeline where we are forced to experience different stages of growth. And that grows our soul as we go through each stage of growth. We come in as a child. It's fun. Everything's wonderful. Maybe some of us come in crying and screaming and kicking. Then we get to, teenage years, and everything's miserable or everything's awesome and it's all over the place. And then you get to sort of midlife, where you start settling in. And all these things are only made possible because we are bound by the rules of time. We have to go to sleep every night. We have to wake up every day. There's sunlight for half the day, quarter of the day, whatever it is. That is the most important thing of being human, is experiencing time. And everything we hear about aliens and things like that is time is different to them. Time is not the same for them. And that's why I think we're the target of the soul reapers, of whatever's harvesting our energy, is because this is where it's growing. You have to be in a physical world attached to a timeline to grow your soul, to grow an experience, to become wiser, to become more powerful as a person, to be able to string together better thoughts and stronger ideas. Those things can only happen when you're bound by a timeline.
Yep, and that's one of those things. This is why I get into things like vampires and, otherworldly creatures or extra dimensional beings is because in a word, it's almost jealousy for what we are as humans. When we have the gift of, learning throughout time, we're very special creatures, despite what so many
Yes.
scientists try to tell you, that we're not, these insignificant little things. And all these things that we talk about, soul reapers and demons and vampires and even aliens, like all of these things are attracted to us because we're that type of entity in the world. And a lot of people get attacked by things like that. Some of us experience it and learn from it, but many people, when they get into stuff like that, like soul reapers, I remember you guys were talking about that in the last thing. And go to New Orleans and you will see, or you will experience, what soul reapers really are in certain places. Those ancient beings that they hang around areas of high violence and just death areas and stuff like that, and they'll suck the absolute life out of you.
Serial Brain 2 went into that in higher level stuff about why they do mass murders, why there's why they do big killings, why wars are important, and the importance of sacrifice. But just as a direct comparison to a human being who's living a life, we can't skip forward to death. You can if you're an idiot. So in comparison to that, you hear stories of people who meet like a specter or an echo of a soul that's been trapped in a moment in time that can't escape that moment in time. And that's just an example of what I mean by humans experience time in a very linear fashion for a reason, to grow the soul. Once you leave this plane of existence, you can't continue to grow. It doesn't appear to be able to continue to grow if you don't let go of your human life. So I'm curious, because the next question for me that pops up in my mind is, what does the Bible say about this? And the Bible starts to speak of what heaven is like, what it is like after you die. And once you start reading deeply into the Bible, you're actually nothing. You are frozen in time until the day of judgment. So once you die, there's many different lines of thought on this, but there are sections of the Bible that say once you get to the moment of judgment, your body's raised up out of the ground and you'll be judged, and then something will happen after that. So does that imply in the meantime that we're put into a stasis field? We don't do anything until that point in time.
It depends on, I think, how you go out in this world. Now, I know that you guys are familiar with paranormal stuff. The difference between residual hauntings and intelligent hauntings, like that actually centers around time as well. So residual hauntings are focused on a certain part of time in a person's life that just replays itself over and over again. Like for us, we just see it as, oh, well, that's just weird. Residual haunting, like something that just keeps happening, like the same thing every day at a certain time.
So for that spirit, time stands still.
Yeah, exactly. So what we're seeing like that, the spirit is just never ending, just getting out of this situation that it's in, that's just constantly replaying itself. And then you see intelligent hauntings, which is not something a whole lot of people have a lot of experience seeing, that but I've heard some interesting stories. But these are people also that are left in a certain field of time, but their time in this dimension and that dimension, it's just so totally horribly skewed. Yeah, exactly.
It's totally different. What I've got from that, and that's why these discussions, chat, everybody in here is saying so many wonderful things, and I hope I can catch it later and talk, because I'm just, absolutely. So if I miss something, I'm sorry, guys. I'm trying to keep up with it. The thing is like you say, Kiwi, there's many interpretations on that. And something I can offer, and I'm not saying that's wrong, I think a lot of these things are all correct. We just don't know how they fit. You know what I'm saying? Because what I'm hearing, and that's why I don't discount anything, because I've found people that had different realities on the other side. You see what I'm saying? And I have come to the, at least I'm on a spot until something else changes to, at this one where it seems like a lot of people have similar experience when they pass. If they get to come back and say like an NDE, right? They might see different things. Some people might have that hell experience. Some people might have a glorious experience and never want to come back because it's so wonderful. And then I get to talk to people, because that's kind of my wheelhouse, of when they come back and want to give a message to a loved one. So when you're talking to that person and that the one who is supposedly on the other side is giving the messages to their loved one, they don't give up too much of the secrets, but they also tell, I saw you dancing in the blue dress. You looked at my picture. I was there at that moment because you connected into my energy, whatever that is, Basically, you connected it. Very much like my elders who tell me we don't talk about certain things because they hear you and they connect into that energy, and then they're aware you're there, That works in a lot of different, a lot of different stuff. But they also seem to say that they have a choice to maybe come back again. Like if you believe in reincarnation is possible, like the soul continues to go back again to learn more because they want to ascend higher in their vibration or frequency, whatever you want to call it.
Well,
that's very interesting to me.
It is very interesting, and that the whole idea of reincarnation and ascension, that's also propagated within the Bible. So the other side of things is within the Bible, you'll read in passages where you'll literally be in suspense until the day of judgment. In other places, you read how some people have been lifted straight up into heaven with their bodies and been exempt from time. Mm-hmm. The other thing that's interesting on this particular subject is what we're learning about the planets, of what we've been told were planets, what the Bible calls wandering stars, luminaries, and by name. The planets have a name for a reason, and what we're seeing now with the telescopes we've got is these don't look like planets like NASA shows us. These look like light balls of light, like fluctuating. Balls of light. Now, Tesla claimed in some of his journals that he reached different dimensions, as many as 12 different dimensions. So I'm wondering if it's not just a matter of the other side. I'm wondering if it's a matter of getting outside of this sphere of Earth and changing to a slightly different frequency on one of these stars that are glittering. I don't know if people have seen them, but these stars look like cymatic patterns of light. And I'm wondering if it's a frequency thing, if it's while we're here on Earth, we're locked into the frequency of Earth, the Schumann resonance, whatever you want to call it. And to get to these planets, or where do people go when they're not in this realm? Perhaps they're not just on the other side. Perhaps they're in another location. Maybe they're on one of these stars.
Mm-hmm. Could very well be. Because think about it. All the times. Now, if you know me a while, you know I've talked to some dead people. I see dead people. Actually, I hear them. I do see them if they're stuck here sometimes, if they want to be seen. It has a lot to do with energy manifestation, how they want to be perceived. I have been in a room. This will blow your mind, but I feel like I need to say this. I have been in a room with other people with abilities trying to help the people in the home as well as the others that were there haunting it, let's just say. This one entity showed himself to me as one thing, to the other medium as one thing, and the psychic medium as a completely different visual wise, visual. We all felt the same thing. Nobody said anything till we got outside and talked. And I said, basically, this guy knows some tricks because he's
Oh yeah.
basically he's the little kid, he's this, and he's the blob that you saw. And he's but simultaneously showing us what he wanted us to see or what we were perceiving. So that tells me that one person might see something looks like a shadow figure where somebody else might see a little girl. Is it the same one? Could be.
Could be.
Could
And
be.
the Bible actually speaks of this. The Bible speaks of
Wow.
angels. Now, when you hear the term angel, I need you to stop and forget about all the City of Angel movies and all the Hollywood crap, right?
Yeah.
An angel in the Bible is an entity, a being that God created that is not supposed to be here on earth. It has the ability to do all sorts of things. One of the abilities an angel has is to appear as a human.
Yeah.
So to
Seen it.
one human, an angel might look a certain way, and to another human, it might look different. And this is documented in the Bible. So to what you were just saying, absolutely, there's a history, a documented history of that sort of thing happening, and it's not just a figment of someone's imagination. And I think it's part of what you were saying, how we need to have smarter conversations about what is the nature of the universe. What is it that we're interacting with, and what are the real rules?
Right.
That is actually a really good point. As far as like angels and shadow people and all of that, we can't say for sure what any of that stuff really and truly is when we see it. I mean, like I told you in chat before, I've never really seen a ghost per se,
Mhm.
but from the point I was a young child to about 2008 when I had a really bad car accident, I saw shadow people everywhere. And I mean everywhere. They followed me into my bedroom. They'd come with me to school. My dad used to tell me that I'd play with these things as a child. Like it looked like I had imaginary friends, but I was seeing shadow people throughout my entire life.
Mm.
And then the one that one car accident that happened, I very nearly drowned in like a body of water that my car landed in. And I mean, I came out of that thankful, because I have another chance at life, but never, ever, ever saw those shadow people again. To this day, never saw one again. So, I mean, it makes you wonder things like that. What are these creatures? Why are they here? Why do they show themselves to you like that? What's their purpose?
Mhm.
And I don't know if anybody else has experiences
I don't
like
know
that.
if it's a purpose. There's some great questions in the chat, and I know Kiwi's on to answer, but I wanted to just add this. I don't know. I mean, if I don't know, I'm going to tell you I don't know. But from what I've learned thus far, there's multiple shadow. Like, I mean, you could see something, that's just showing, like we just said, showing itself as that. Maybe it's a human, like Kiwi said, stuck in this time for whatever. And usually what holds you back is your own human stuff. Lower vibrational things like regret, jealousy, hatred, anger, confusion, aggression, just whatever. And
Yeah,
that
self-loathing,
person,
loathing.
yes, oh yeah, and all that kind of stuff. That people say unfinished business, but that's really like it's going to be a 20-minute wait to go in the restaurant. You know what I'm saying? Even though it's going to be an hour and a half, and they know it, they say 20 minutes. That's like that paranormal answer. It's just there are shadow people that I believe are extra dimensional that come
Mhm.
here very much like you were saying to feed on that fear, whether they're studying us or whatever. But it always seems like the real shadow people I'm talking about always want you to harm yourself or get you to harm something else or get you to do little things that you shouldn't do, like stick a fork in the socket or something. And I think they're here to get as much of your soul, much of you as they can, your energy, and then probably your soul ultimately in the end. I do believe they're either soul reapers or soul collectors in that category. Then there's just shadow people where it's Uncle Mike came by and he's, that's how you see it, whatever it is. So there's different ones. And that's one thing in this subject. Everybody puts everything into a little file, and then sticks them all in a cabinet and marks it. If you're really honest with yourself and this subject, you're often going to have to take those files out and fix them and realize this goes into this one. Wait a minute, there's a little bit of that over here. And maybe that's why the ones that come back and, in my experience, have crossed, let's just say for now, crossed over and come back to give that loved one a message or whatever they're here for, won't tell you everything. They often say, we can't tell you that. You have to find this out on your own. See what I mean? It's a big puzzle piece missing. But I believe it would be cheap. It would cheapen the whole thing if we had all the answers, because then we'd just be, humans. We'd be loafing around going, I don't have to even try. I can go back and I can come back and try again. And I have heard those that have crossed that just don't want to, they're done. I'm happy with the level I'm at. I'm resonating really good here. I'm good, and it's fascinating. Would you like to answer that one question or whatever?
It speaks to that point. So John Miller in chat says, I'm puzzled. Can Kiwi expand on where the Bible speaks of reincarnation? This is something I was taught is not in the Bible. So
different wording.
Reincarnation, the wording of reincarnation isn't in the Bible. The act of reincarnation is discussed quite widely. So first of all, let's just start at a starting point to show that it is possible. Jesus died. He went down into the earth and was resurrected. So the act of reincarnation in our historical records is accurate. It is something that's possible. Yes, it was the Son of God that did it. It was Jesus. So it's a non-provable phenomenon based on our historical records. Some of the other interesting points of reincarnation and aspects of it is leveling up, becoming better, or being given more responsibility as a being to maybe look after other beings. And that's told in the story of angels. Archangels, people that look over other people. It's all through the Bible. It's just not worded as incarnation or reincarnation. And some of the other things the Bible talks about is the kingdom of God. It's not just you go to heaven and there's no hierarchy. There's very clearly a hierarchy of God's court in heaven. You have Satan, known as the accuser, in God's court, who approaches God and makes his case for mankind being evil by nature. So the concept of there being a hierarchical structure after you leave this plane of existence is well documented throughout the Bible. How you go between the levels in that hierarchy is part of the game of life. That's part of, and the Bible talks about it lots. The Bible talks about how to be a better servant of God. Why to be a better servant of God? Because you get a better home in the mansion that Jesus has prepared for you in heaven. Yeah. So there are lots of different ways it's worded, but the Bible is full of stories of reincarnation or leveling up in your being. One of the other important things is that the Bible talks about your spiritual body, which is different from your physical body, but it is a body that is given to you in heaven. And it's the body that Adam and Eve, I believe, had in the Garden of Eden before they sinned and were given the skins of animals, humans, to cover them, to cover their spirits.
Yeah, when you really look, when you see Genesis in the same eyes, I mean, Kiwi have studied it, it becomes a really interesting
It's incredibly
tale.
supernatural.
Yeah, it is. It is. And that's something I wanted to say tonight. So is everybody in this chat. So as everybody that's going to hear this, we are supernatural, and we have to realize that, because all of the things that we're talking about that want to have our soul, our connection, our divine spark, it's highly valuable,
Oh,
and it needs to be protected. And it's also your best weapon, because it'll beat them every time. The minute that you realize that your light is stronger than all their darkness, you win. You win, and you
good
never
point.
stop.
So as a child, I was going to share with you on the last episode a reoccurring dream I had as a child that's
Oh,
so
please
vivid
do.
I remember it to this day. So the dream starts out. I'm at my father's sister's property, not far from where I grew up as a kid, and they had a property with a house and then a little bit of a hill that went up to like a little garden at the top of the hill. Now, I would have this dream that I was at their place. We would often go there as kids. Mum and Dad would play cards and drink, and we would run around till all hours of the night outside. But this particular dream, I wandered off up to the top of the garden because I saw it was dark, and I saw steam floating up out of the garden, and a very menacing, dark, nasty vibe just coming up out of the garden. And that memory has been with me since I was 5 years old. I think it just will not go away.
Right, right.
I can't
And
remember
well,
what it was.
what I got
That's-
from that basically, well, like you're saying, it come out, but you knew, this is how I usually explain it. First of all, your filters. We talked about this in one of the with Steve, and I think you guys were in the chat. People say, how do you know that this is something good or this is something bad? I believe as a child, right away, you knew. You knew that just like in the story, the white wolf, the black wolf, and that's not saying that white is good and black is bad. And what we're talking about right now is light
Yes.
and dark. That's what we're
Light
talking
and
about.
color are different.
Yes, that's absolutely true. So don't misunderstand me, chat. What I'm saying is good and evil. Okay. And the young boy in the story knew it, not by color, not by sight, but how he felt when he saw it. How he inside inherently, instinctively felt the bad coming. But he felt like it knew him. See?
Yeah.
Because it does.
And that's one of
And the
it's one
other
of those
one just
things.
as well. Go
right.
ahead, baby. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying it's one of those things as children can see those
Yes.
things better and discern whether or not they're good or bad.
Mhm.
Better than most adults. Adults have this weird veil over our eyes where we don't see good and evil as easily as we did when we were kids. It's not that simple to us anymore.
Mhm.
So, and I'm pretty sure that's a reason why you'll see more children have paranormal experiences than
Yes.
they do in their adult life.
They're also
So-
closer to coming back from the other side, because you think about it, that baby being born, and we can, I have heard a lot of things back and forth, like the soul goes in, and the minute the heartbeat or this, it's there to begin with. Some I've heard, and some of this came from people I really trust too. It said that it waits for a couple of the soul part. It's like to hit in. So it doesn't matter when, it's there, and
Yep.
it's still closer to the other side, because if you're talking reincarnation, it very well may be, it's decided to come in. Now, we often talk about, then why do certain souls come in and leave so quickly? I think that soul chose that. Because if you think about it, we're talking ripples again. Think ripples. That child coming through, whatever, whether it's just a few months or a few years, whatever, it's teaching everybody something. How to deal with grief, loss, how precious life is, how fragile we are. It teaches so many things. That tiny little life coming in just for a split teaches so much, and it chooses to be here. And I think a lot of us chose to be here at this time. And going back to Kiwi's dream, I'd like to ask you, did you ever have that dream where you saw how you reacted to it, or were uh, you felt not, I don't want to say fear.
So, so,
You
so I
felt
felt
the
the
evil
fear.
and you left.
Yeah. No, yeah, and I definitely reacted to it. So much so that I actually, at some point, I don't know when I learned this, but I learned a technique of dealing with fear, where I will go into my own mind, I'll shut my eyes, and I'll imagine myself being a ball of light. And it
Yep.
might just be a dot in a big black canvas.
Mhm.
And I will imagine in my mind pushing out that light all the way around me, and I'll imagine feeling that light travel out around me into a protective sphere. And I
Absolutely.
practice strengthening that until some people might get nervous after, like, or things that go bump in the night, or things like that. This technique protected me from fear of anything. Basically, this is my sphere of light, and I control everything in it.
You bet you
Kiwi's
do.
a natural witch. I don't know if you know
You
that.
bet you do.
That's technically casting a circle. That's a good thing.
Well,
People have to practice this.
Isn't it? Here we go again. Different tribal things, different cultures, all doing the same thing. Now, how do we all learn this? We just call it something different. Okay. What my group calls, whatever group I'm in, I'm a Native American hippie gypsy redhead New Jersey chick. But this is
All
the
of
thing.
the above.
All the above. Check. The thing is I've spent a lot of time observing this, and that was what you just described is exactly how I would tell somebody to deal with a job where somebody was negative. You put yourself in a protective bubble, you imagine the light all around, it comes from within and grows out, goes around you, and that's it. And I said, try it at work, see if that negative person, okay, you don't do it as the minute you do it as a trick, or I want to get her, you've already ruined it, because you're doing it out of the wrong reasons. But if you're doing it to protect yourself, just like you just described, Kiwi, I've seen people come up and start getting ready to say something and get so thrown off by that good energy they're walking into, they just blah, 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 and they just walk away. It's amazing. So every single person has this. Every single person has this. This is also how a lot of people ground. They'll imagine that golden light, or that light coming out, surrounding them, and washing over, going from the crown of your head all the way down through your chakras, down to your feet, your roots, into the ground, and then pulling. You're not done putting in. Then you're pulling into earth, from earth, and pulling all that energy back through you, and cleansing, finishing it. We are so connected to the earth. And I tell people, you want to ground, go walk outside barefoot, stick your hands in the dirt, hug a tree. That's why, we get called tree huggers. But there's so much energy from nature. And the Native Americans had that down, and I'm sure many tribal communities throughout the world. Same thing. And that was beautiful, Kiwi. And I would tell you that was probably not just a lucid dream. Getting to know you before I ever saw your face, just talking to you, you pick up energy through electronics and people. I'm telling you, you don't want to hear from that ex or that crazy whoever. Stop accepting their energy in the phone calls, because it comes through electronics. It comes through the television, the radio, and we can talk all night on that. But if you don't want to accept it, if you don't want to give it permission to connect into your energy, stop answering it. Just no response, no anything, just walk away. And because when you draw that in, you start to draw their stuff in. And so that's all part of it. But I would say that dream was, because I've read your energy, that was more of an omen that you were going to be given knowledge. You were going to seek knowledge, not be given it, because we have to work for that a lot of times too, through our own tasks, through our own, stuff. Because as you said before, as you go through life, you learn. If we didn't have any experience, we wouldn't know anything. But it's an omen that you are, I believe, to battle evil with knowledge, and by telling even other people knowledge, you're giving them the tools that they can battle it themselves as well, and understand who we are and how strong and wonderful beings we really are. If everybody wants our soul and everybody would do anything to get it, and you need to, it's so precious.
And that we have the power to control our own fear,
Yes.
because that's if you look at what's happening out in the media at the moment, what everyday people are feeling, it's fear. That's the spell that's being used against everyone.
Yes.
The whole world with this whole COVID thing is fear, fear, fear. And once you can control fear, then it's you that's in control and not the system.
And
That's
fear,
a good point.
I believe that fear, you also learn to control your fear a little bit by your consciousness being raised. And what do I mean by that? Your perception. The same way people perceived different things differently. When you raise your consciousness above, when you realize that you have this within you, that I say it on my show all the time, one pinpoint of light can light up a darkened room. So when you have that consciousness, when you realize that you are conscious to the fact that you have that divine light within you, okay, and you can do things like you described with the bubble and the light and putting out, good energy. Put out good energy, usually good energy comes back. When you're depressed and you're fear and you're worried and everything and you're negative, what happens? More negative happens. How many friends do we have? Show of hands in the chat. If you know somebody that when you talk to them on the phone, you go to work, you sit in a room, the break room, you just try to eat your donut, and your coffee, whatever. Here they come, and they don't have to say anything, but just walk in the room, and right away you start feeling, oh God. And then if you have a conversation with them, your energy is just that's what I call an energy vampire. Half the
Psychic
time they don't even
vampires,
know.
yep.
Yeah, they don't even know it half the time, but they're drawing. It's so negative. It's something. And then you have the professional ones who do it on purpose. But
Yes.
once you realize that, I think that automatically starts to raise your consciousness. And it was so funny tonight. I'm going to tell this little story. Forgive me, but I think this is for you too. So I promised I would tell it tonight. Chat, you're not going to believe this. So I'm at work, and I got very lucky to have people around me that actually are into this, which is so cool. So they'll ask me little things. It's like, I'm really trying to work on this. I get angry a little bit too much. What can I do? Or I feel overwhelmed. Do you know anything about crystals? What about getting my chakra clean? Opening my third eye. And I'm like, oh God, don't do it all in the same day. It's just, people always say they want to open their third eye, and then they do it. They go, oh my God, You have to prepare yourself. You have to be ready, But little steps, baby steps, do what's right for you. Everybody's got to do their own path, and there's lots of different things you can do that works for you. So my boss was interested in this, so I said, okay, well, try this. I gave her a crystal, and I explained a little bit to her and all that. And I said, let's try fire gazing. I said, get a white candle and just look at the flame. Just give it all. Just, relax, breathe in, breathe out. Gave her a couple little things. And I said, you can also do it with music and dance barefoot in your kitchen, whatever you want to do. Just raise your vibration. Just get it off. She's not quite ready for the bubble yet, but we'll get there. So we got to talk a little bit about raising consciousness. She goes, I just, I'm starting to see things, and I don't want to be, in the third dimension anymore. And because your third dimension, you can explain it better than I can, but basically you're just seeing, as it is, everything they want you to see, and your head's down and you're in your phone and you're just, well, I got to go to work, and you just kind of wandering around. But when you raise up, you get to see a little bit more, like a 40,000 foot view, and you're resonating on a higher frequency, not, too high, but you're getting up there, and you start to see things differently, and things come to you, and, like we were talking. So she started to listen to meditational tapes and some other things when she's driving in her car. That's where she's getting. I'm like, that's awesome. So today she had to do a wedding in a park. And she took her flowers. She had to decorate an arch by a beautiful lake. And she loves nature. And I said, spend as much time with nature as you can, because, boy, that works for me. You know, it's just connection in, grounding and everything, and rejuvenating. So she was looking at the swans, and she, did the arch and everything. And then she watched, and she had to keep walking back and forth from the van to bring flowers and stuff. The swans got up and left and went onto the lake. And she was watching them swim, and she finished her work, and she started to grab her buckets. And on the way back to the van, the same path she just walked in after the swans had left, she now looked down and found 2 white feathers. And she just, oh my gosh, that's amazing. And she said right away she felt like it was for her. So she took them and she put them in the bucket, and she came back to work. And the first thing she did when she came in the door, she goes, look what I got, 2 beautiful white swan feathers. She says, I don't know what's going on, she said, because they were gone. And they weren't there when I walked by, and I would have noticed because I was watching carrying buckets where my feet went. And I said, I'm going to tell you right now, it's a gift from Spirit. It's a gift from Spirit. Yep. And I said, I don't know what the swan medicine is off the top of my head. I can tell you crow. I can tell you, a lot of different medicines. And what that means is characteristics of the animal, like tenacity of the spider. Because what happens if a spider web breaks, they don't just sit there and, oh gosh, I worked so hard on that web and now I gotta go. No, he gets right back up there and he fixes it, because that's everything to him, so that kind of thing. So I go looking, and this is what comes up. I had to share this. Hold 1 second. I had to write it down. Blew my mind. Okay, so swan, the characteristics of a swan, it said the swan represented the north direction and was always the first power of creation, which is the wind. Okay, so that's, as far as Native American lore. Okay, it says a female shaman is also called a swan in some Native American languages. Never knew that. Pretty cool.
Right.
So, okay, and then it says dreaming of a swan meant glimpsing the highest heaven, and the dreamer was said to be acknowledged by celestial beings. Okay, and her eyes are getting wide at this point. I'm reading this to her, right? And it said swan characteristics include the fact that it is home within the 3 realms of existence, the sky, water, and land as well. Water is symbolic of the depths of our consciousness, and the swan always stays on the surface of the water. Thus, the swan also appears to speak to the dawn of consciousness and the rising of yours.
Interesting.
I finished that, and she went like this, grabs hold of my arm, and she said, I was in the car listening to the meditation tapes, and I said out loud, I just don't think I'm raising my consciousness at all. I got so much to learn. I must be so far down there, my consciousness is never going to be raised. She parks the van, gets out of the van. That's when she starts carrying buckets. Not an hour later, 2 feathers. You
Boom.
Tell me that's not for everybody tonight.
Right. That's a good thing for people to be thinking about when they go to bed tonight, for sure. That
I'm serious.
The world tends to tell you exactly what you need to hear when you need to hear it.
And when you're ready to listen,
Yes, that's the important part.
And the one you feed, and the things that you feed, because if you go around being angry all the time and giving all this away, you are really doing yourself such a disservice. All those lower, and, any shaman I've ever spoken to that I hold in regard will tell you, you have to go through the dark to get to the light. You have to know there's a little of both in all of it. And you can't just learn just light all day long. You have to go through the hard stuff too.
I think part of back into the reincarnation, I think part of our journey into becoming higher functioning beings or entities, without the dark challenging us, we wouldn't raise our skill of working in the light, of being in the light. So if we didn't face the evil, how would we know to teach others to avoid it, or to maybe guide others to avoid it? How would we be able to pass on wisdom if we hadn't earned the wisdom?
Or even acknowledge it. I mean, think, what's that one Anon said a long time ago, Cisco, about darkness? How sometimes you must walk through the darkness before you can see the light.
See the light, or even appreciate it. You know, it's like, you know, there's got to be those you know, really dark times. You don't appreciate the good. I mean, if we just walked around here, you know, and everything was just hunky-dory, we'd never even notice anything. I think, you know, of all the things that have happened over the past year or two, and where we got stopped just long enough to pay attention, we started appreciating each other more, and we got to spend more time with our family, or maybe we didn't, and that made it appreciate it more. And we also, something else I think happened, a lot of people found out who they were, you know, and started reaching out, finding new things to do and new ways to expand and to grow and to be something different or try new things, and they never had a time before. And now I look and I see so many people blooming and really coming into themselves because they had that time. And like I said, you know, most of the good shamans that I know will tell you that they didn't get that way without a battle. They had to go in some big battles to get there.
Yep, I completely agree. You have to. It's a hell of a fight, and it's every day.
It is
for a lot of people.
And it's also, you look at what a generation forgets, and how soon a generation's freedom is lost if it forgets.
Yeah,
absolutely true. And I'll tell you that there's been, from what I hear, civilizations that are doing what we were allowing, you know, without even knowing, you know, just warring and, killing our own, you know what I mean? Like, say, Planned Parenthood and stuff like that. It doesn't last very long. They don't go past like 125 years or 130 years of civilization, because it's almost like the universe says, nope, they're not getting it. Start again. Or whatever happens, because you have to raise your consciousness. You have to realize how fragile things are. And, you know, that's the whole point I started this show, was because of the paranormal it was all bleeding skulls. And every time a board creaked, it was a demon, and it was this and was that. Yeah. And people kept missing the miracles, everyday miracles, like happened to her today. You know, that cardinal that lands on your car just after you were asking, gosh, I hope my dad's okay. And his favorite bird was a cardinal. Dad's not the cardinal. But by gosh, I believe that things like that can be manipulated just for a moment, for the universe or whoever's in charge to tell you everything is cool, go on. The miracles, we kept pushing those away. The miracles of our children, the miracles of good friends, the miracle of knowledge, and just how beautiful a tree is, or a flower, or, you know, a bird in flight. You know, we miss it. And I think we've been stopped, so we'll pay a little bit more attention and realize the darkness is there. But, you know, if we've got all that light going on, doesn't have a chance. We just have to realize the power within us. And I bet you that's in the Bible too.
Yeah. And one of the interesting things, I don't know if this is in the Bible, I can't think at the moment whether or not it is, but the only way this situation improves is if we lift everyone else up with us. That's the only way out of the mess that we're in at the moment.
Yes.
And
that's
the whole where we go on, we go all.
It is. And it's also to raise the consciousness of others too. You know, you've got to take that person with you. Of course, you're going to listen to the friend and try to talk her through it. But you also have to come to a point where you go, it's like, you got to say, girl, you got to get your shit together, because, you know, we keep having the same conversation and you keep rolling around in the same thing. And there's your haunting. And I'll tell you right now, you don't want to be a ghost. Everybody thinks it's so cool to see a ghost or whatever. I always went on the other side of it because it's, to me, it's like Hans Holzer said, I've never been afraid of a ghost. There are only people in need of help. Well, right now we've got a lot of people right here that are still alive that need help and need to get out of their muck and mire and start paying attention to how beautiful the world can be too, and I think we can change it because somebody here in the chat, oh, here we go, it was Ruck Rabbit Outdoors, very cool. Welcome into the chat. So if we forget history, we're destined to repeat it. I believe George Santayana said it, and probably Churchill pulled it off too, but that's true.
Definitely.
I mean, it's not been working like we're doing. Maybe if we spread a little bit more love and start paying attention to these miracles. I once went into my car. I asked, was going through something, and I said, I don't need a sign. I don't need anything else. I just need to know, if this person that, had passed, got through it okay. And it's a long story, but I had to sing that person over because she had been beaten down by society and told a lot of lies and chose to believe them. And I knew she had a faith base in there, but I had to dig down quick. I had to appeal to her higher self and get her to listen. And, there's a way you can walk them over. That's very native. But anyway, I wanted to know that she made it. And I said, is it okay, or do we need to still work on this? Because I'm not getting any connection back. We had a bad connection. And my car was locked. I'm ready to go to work. I unlocked my car. I get in, and there's a white gossamer feather sitting inside my car where the dials are. Like you look through the steering wheel, and right there, could have never got in there any other way. But it was supposed to be there. And something higher than me with more power had that happen. And we need to keep paying attention.
Yep.
We have to be able to start looking at those things again and gleaning some of the happiness too, because you have to feed our souls. And which one are you going to feed?
Exactly.
That's a well-made point.
That's exactly what I was hoping to bring in with that at the start of the video, and then take people on a little bit of a journey on how I sort of perceive life, and then hopefully end up offering a little bit of illumination to anyone else who might be considering those things.
Isn't that wonderful? We sure came to the right people to do it. And I'll tell you what, if you guys want to hear some good news and some hope and a fun chat to be in and just everybody supporting each other, I suggest you listen to AtWeeksEndNews on Dlive. And that is now, we're getting into times here, people, so I'm going to pass it on to you. When do you guys show that?
Well, in America, it's Saturday evenings at 5 p.m. East. There's a lot of New Zealanders in our chat room now, so it's New Zealand Sunday at 9 a.m. So
because they're from the future.
We have morning and night.
And never gets old.
We welcome anybody in the chat to join us. We don't usually talk about paranormal things, but we'll give you the breakdown of the week's news.
The world is strange enough as it is, just learning the truth.
Right.
Without trying to discuss things like this all the time, where we can't prove one way or another that there is a hierarchical structure in heaven. Yes, I mean, there's a lot of science. So the show is, we try and stick to things we can prove, and there's plenty of strange things we can prove.
Oh, yeah,
wow.
Definitely.
Way too many. But see, that's the thing. You got to bring that stuff to light, because if we don't look at it, we can't do something about it,
Exactly,
and that's the thing right there. Absolutely. You got to bring it to light. It's been in the dark for too long. Once it comes to the light, best disinfect it. I'm telling you right now, because like I said in the beginning and all through this, we have that within us. So there is no reason to fear. I mean, there's always going to be things that can hurt us, of course, but I'll tell you, I've learned some of the best lessons, and I got scars to prove it, but I had to go through those things, to have those scars and learn from it, So it's not always going to be easy. It's not always going to be a good path. But I brought up Heather here. Hi, Heather. Welcome to the chat. No matter which path we walk, we all get to the same place in the afterlife. I agree with that to the most part. I think some people don't get. I mean, I've seen some stuff. And we're almost done with the show, so we don't have time. But tune back in, and we'll hit on that. But
there's a whole big discussion on that one.
yeah, there is. But see, the reason I pulled that up is because we kind of had a native-based idea here with the Bible mix, and it's amazing how much of it goes together, isn't it? Instead of separating us off in groups, we've got to start understanding that so much of that core is the same. Yeah,
absolutely.
And that's where we need to start with the love, with what's in us, and then realize that everybody just has characteristics and things on top of that, but we're very basically the same. And I was talking to an elder once. Some of the best wisdom was found around 3:00 in the morning around that powwow fire where all the elders are sitting and we're quiet most of the day, and then they speak and everybody else is quiet and listens. And we got to ask a question, and I said, what do you think about spirituality, religion, and the other things that go with that? And very simply, he looked at me and he said, I don't know why people get so hung up on what path they take. We're all going to wind up in the same place in the end. And he said, do you understand what I mean? And I said, I think so. And he says, as you live, you will understand. And I don't think he meant that in a strict way of one place. I think it meant that we're going back to the energy that we came from. And at that point, we may very well be in your different time places and different levels of vibration and that kind of thing. And again, like maybe you get to choose to come back. Maybe you have to go through some things to learn before you get a chance to and get some of that off of you. I don't know. But we're all responsible for our ripples. And we all need to pay more attention to that, so maybe be a little kinder. And that comes down to arrows. And the short version of arrows is basically when somebody shoots an arrow at you, you have a choice. You cannot control that person. You're not responsible for that person and their actions. So you have to choose. Do you duck and just pretend it never happened and walk away? Do you start shooting arrows back and become like them? Do you pick it up and give it back and say you missed? The only thing is basically you don't want to become like them. And you also have to understand that you are responsible for your choices and your reactions and what you do, not them. So we don't have to fix everybody, but you have to decide what you're going to do if somebody shoots arrows at you. You know what I mean? Of course, if you have to protect your, there's all different situations, but that's your conscious choice. And we are responsible for our conscious choices. And if you want to raise your consciousness, you need to start thinking about that. What would you guys like to close with? And I love you guys for being here. Thank you so much.
No, I would just like to say thank you. Thank you, everyone in chat. Thank you for the awesome questions. And hopefully we can do it again sometime and we can put together between us and the chat, hopefully some knowledge, a little bit more of an idea on what it is that we're in, what this matrix really is.
I can agree with that. And personally, I think this last year and this year are our truth behind the day the world stood still. It's our own rendition of it. We're being shown exactly what this world is and what we can do to fix it and how we have to come together to fix it. And it's really up to us. It's the same thing with the arrow story. We could either choose to take the arrow or we could just kind of get out of the freaking way. It's the same thing with the wolves. You feed the good wolf or you feed the bad wolf. It's all on you. The choice is yours.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And, you can also pick it up, break it in half and say, now let's have a conversation and talk about why you're such an asshole.
Right. Right.
because like I said, it's free will and we are humans. So every once in a while, but some arrows aren't worth picking up, folks. You know what I mean? And those people will come along eventually or they won't. And that's their free will and their choice. But as for us, we're going to try to raise our consciousness as much as possible with these two. And we're going to have you back. And I can't thank you enough for coming in. And I've kept you longer than I promised. But gosh, what a
That's okay.
conversation. I
It's
love
been
you so
awesome.
much.
Thank you.
You'll come back, won't
We
you?
love you
Love
too.
you too, yeah.
All right, baby. Big hugs all the way across the other side of the world.
You too.
I love you.
Thank you
Good
so
night,
much,
chat.
sister.
Thank you, everybody, for coming in. And I love your questions. Thank you so much. Good night, everybody.
Good night.